music in New Jersey. And they were great, super fast shipping and no tax because they don't have a place out here. I actually just bought another one from Mimi Antenna or Meme Antenna or Me Antenna, and they had a couple. When I was looking for one, I went onto OPZ's website and looked at all their U.S. retailers and just opened each one in a separate tab in my web browser, and then would just refresh it to see if I could find one. Okay, orc. In sample tracks, is there a way to use sounds from two different plugs in the same sequence? Yes and no. It's kind of complicated. There's a workaround. You can't use more than one plug in the same track, but all the sample tracks are just sample-based sequencers, right? So you can load in samples that you want to use into, how do I put this? There's not plugs. I don't think so. Oh, there are plugs. You can load in your samples onto two different tracks, right? So let's say you have a kick that you want to use and you have another kick that you want to use on the exact same step. What you can do is load in your first kick on a plug in the kick track and then load in your second kick as a sample on your hi-hat track, and then use those. You lose that hi-hat though, but I think that's kind of the nice thing about having 4 different sampler tracks. They're not prescribed to be anything. They're grouped into kick, snare, hats and samples. I think more of a convenience, so you can better organize your workflow, but you don't have to use them like that. You can load in any kind of sample that you want. Does that make sense? I'm going to hope the answer is yes. All right, cool. So I think there's a delay in the stream. All right, I'm just going to start building a track and see what happens. My monitor is to the left of me, so I'll have to turn around to see any questions, but drop a question and I'll answer it. See, I'm going to clear this pattern. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can type in the metronome that you want. So using the numbers. So I have it on 80. If you type in 90, it switches 90, 120, which is fun. Let's do 90. No, let's do 80. Nice and lo-fi. I'm going to close the door 1 second. If the stream gets really low quality, it's because I closed the door because my family's here cooking in preparation for Thanksgiving. Okay. Don't really need the metronome because I'm going to start with the drum track. I loaded in a bunch of Maxwell kicks. I'm going to turn on the metronome again because I'm going to live record this. probably wrong. Metronome off. Let's give myself some hi-hats. Oh, that's not what I wanted. There we go. That's what I wanted. Try that again. All right. If you have two sounds in one step, is there a way to have a step component affect only one note on that step? Yes. Your step components affect the actual step and the actual track you have. So you can't have more than one sound in a step anyway per track. So what you'll end up doing is just affecting that step, and that's how it works. If you're talking about something like in the synths, and you have multiple notes, there's no way to affect just one note, like in a chord. Let's say you have a C major and you want to just affect the E, you can't do that. The synth steps act as a step with all the sounds that the synth engine is generating from it. But if you want to just affect the hi-hat, that's super easy. So let's actually do that. So right now I have a kick on the one of the third measure. So let's say I want to affect the hi-hat on the 1 and 3rd measure. If you hold down Shift, I'm going to select that to add a step component, and I'm going to multiply it and make it a little triplet. So there you go. Now I'm only affecting the hi-hat step on that one track, and nothing else is being multiplied. I want to add it to this one as well. Maybe a ramp up. Oh, I need to there you go. So you kind of hear that pitch going up on that last hat. Take that one off to accentuate it. Yeah. I like it on, but maybe we multiply it by 2 just to kind of wrap up into it. It's kind of glitchy and fun. I want to add some swing to this. This feels like it needs some swing. So holding down tempo and adjusting the blue dial. Too much. Maybe just lower it altogether. There we go. Let's add a bass line. kind of fun. If we make that to get that nice low LFO coming in and out, I'm going to change the length by holding down track and shift and pressing forward to give it 4 bars. Going to hold record and play, which will enable record arm, and as soon as I touch the button, it'll start. So. Note style is legato, so it should play the whole time. Let's see. And this is the part where we get to learn together. Maybe I just screwed it up. Is quarter note triplets possible? Okay, so here's the confession. I'm not super great at music theory. If you're asking, so I'm not entirely sure what you're asking. You're meaning make triplets within the span of a quarter note. If that's what it is, I believe that is possible. So let's go to the maybe the chords, right? You have the note length here. So we can set the note length, and we just have one bar. We're going to set the note length to quarter notes, right? And so if I play a chord, let's give it an A minor. Let's clear that. It might be easier to just record this in. All right. So if I take this, where I added a quarter note and then multiply by 3, this is kind of the workaround for triplets, because you can't actually program in triplets unless maybe you set your track length to 1 and everything else is on like 4. So and you increase the tempo so it sounds like it's a triplet when really it's just really fast, kind of 3/8 notes or whatever it is. So let's hear what that sounds like. still 36. Let's change it to the fourth. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can program just 3 beats, but it's not going to quantize to where you want it. So we set the quantize up. I actually don't think you can. That's a really good question. That I'm going to do a little more research and get to the bottom of, but that makes sense. Yeah, you could record it in manually, you know, live. But I think quantizing it would lead you to snap to the quarter grid. You always could nudge. I don't know if you guys know, but you can, if you hold down a note, you can nudge it with the plus or minus signs. And the brighter the purple is, I don't know if you could see this, the more off the beat you are. Question. If you have 2 sounds in one step, is there a way to have a step component only affect one note in that step? You mean if you have 2 different sounds on the same step in the same track? No, unfortunately you can't do that. But the good news, you can't record 2 different sounds in the same step in the same track unless you play it in live. Which makes me... Yeah, you can't, unfortunately, you can't do that as of now. I was thinking if you, because the way the step sequencer works, right? If you play a note, it's now in the memory and you can add it, right? That sounds terrible, but you get the idea. So part of me thinks that if you, maybe in a future update, there's a way to hold this then assign it. But see, you've adjusted the whole track now, so that's a good idea. I would recommend writing into Teenage Engineering and telling them to make that a reality. All right, any more questions before we move on? So you guys, learning together is fun. To randomize all the presets, kind of make a cool one of yourself, just press track and record. It's kind of a cool 7th. the decay. Make it really quick. Lower everything. All right. With the crazy workaround on how to play your two different notes on the same step to nudge affect one and then nudge it all the way to be on the other note. Wow, very smart. Lloyd Robinflex. You should host this with me. You're much smarter than I am. Can you? So my question is, I thought you could nudge. You can't nudge all the way into the other step. I guess if you're on the right resolution, you can. But I suppose you could also nudge the other one forward and one back. Micro timing. All right. Funny, it says this in A Dorian. It's really kind of writing this in A minor, and then I guess I made a seventh by using the lead and the arp on the seventh, so it made it So, Patrick, let me make sure I'm hearing you right. Do you want to change the notes of those multiplied steps after you've multiplied them? Because if you do, you can't really do that. There's a couple effects that you can assign some step parameters, step components, like the ramp up and ramp down, which will affect that step and all its multiplications, like we did on that hi-hat. But once you've multiplied a step, you can't change each of those multiples manually. It uses its base, whatever was programmed in there that you had multiplied. So I think it's interesting how the OPZ kind of functions as technology. What it does is you kind of lay out the groundwork and then you can affect that groundwork, but it's not as robust as your Ableton or whatever, where you can go in and manually change every little bit after the fact that you recorded. It's very linear in the way that it acts. Yeah, not having an iPhone or an iPad it's not something I think is necessary to play around with, and for the first few days I just didn't. And then once I realized the visual feedback for learning was really great, I started using my phone. I still don't really use it except for recording these tutorials, just because I think it's important for people to understand kind of what is going on and how it's functioning, because it gives you the instructions right on screen, which I think is really useful for learning. But once you kind of have it down in your head, you understand the functionality of it. You don't need to use it. And it's not important for really seeing, like, when you're on a track, say you're on your bass track, you have parameter 1 and parameter 2, and it says P1 and P2. That's not incredibly helpful. I know that on the white LEDs, green and blue mean parameter 1 and parameter 2. I still have to check with the manual or with the kind of cheat sheet I made. By the way, it's in the description for a free download. I find it really helpful. I just kind of went through and reorganized the manual into one page. So definitely download that. That's going to be a lot more useful than having an iPad screen. Just because it doesn't really give you a ton of information you don't know. It's helpful to remember, hey, this is white, green is my ADSR, my LFO is purple, and whatnot. Yeah. But, feel free to ask away here or send me a message. I'll do my best to answer them. Lloyd asked, the only thing I can't figure is how to sequence the lights on the OPZ. Is it only possible with the app? Right. So with the lights and with the visualizer, it's not run off of the OPZ itself. It's run off of the app. So the OPZ is controlling the app, which is then controlling out via USB, either a DMX for lights or Unity through the app itself. How am I recording this video? What am I plugging my OPZ into? All right, that's actually simple, and I've struggled over the last week to figure out the best way to do this, and I think I figured it out. So, if I cannot destroy my entire laptop setup, I have the OPZ on just a nice surface. I have two lights, both made by Aperture, 120D and the Tri-8. I have a Manfrotto, I think it's the 055 tripod with a three-way head. The great thing about that tripod is that it has a 90-degree angle extension, so I can leave it looking straight down. And then I have the OPZ running into a Focusrite Scarlett 6i6. Last live stream I had it in the 3/4 inputs, which don't have gain control, so nobody can hear what I was doing in a few comments were less than pleased with that, so sorry about that. I now have it into the inputs 1 and 2, which do have gain control, so I was able to test out everything before starting the stream, which I think was super helpful. I just have a stereo splitter, so going from stereo into left-right monos. And then I'm using for the broadcast a free software called, what is it, Open Broadcaster something, OBS. And I downloaded it yesterday and used it for the first stream, and it worked pretty well. Oh, I also have my handy H4n Pro field recorder. I do some film and video directing work, and I got this for recording interviews, but it has a cool USB interface where it just becomes a USB mic, which is definitely the nicest mic I own that has USB functionality. So I could use my computer audio, but I think this sounds nicer and it isolates a little bit more because it's directional. The Q2N is a camera and audio recorder. That's interesting. If I hadn't spent way too much money on a bunch of lenses for this 5D Mark III, I would definitely look into it. Yeah, the Scarlett, the Focusrite Scarlett is a USB audio interface I bought for things like tracking guitar. I had the Solo, and then I wanted more inputs because I was starting to buy synths, and I didn't want to have to buy another mixer. I just wanted everything to plug into one central box and be able to control it from Ableton, which is my DAW. I highly recommend them. They're super affordable for what they give you, and there's a lot of kind of cool mixer ins and outs that you can use, so you don't only have to use it with your computer. There's a way to enable it so it just acts as a mixer directly into your monitors. At least on the like 6i6, maybe the 4i4 or whatever the ones. The Scarlett Solo didn't do that. It was, the thing that enables that is called Focusrite Control, and it's a digital in-out configurator. 360 lens and 3.5 input. Yeah, if you're just getting started doing this stuff and you don't already have the equipment, that sounds like a really simple solution. And I'm guessing it's USB, and you could hook it up to your computer to broadcast stuff, right? Basically, I think in terms of broadcasting, whatever works. You don't have to have the most expensive camera, and you don't have to invest a lot of stuff into your setup. Like my first couple tutorials I recorded on my iPhone because I thought the resolution was a little crisper, and I have this cheap little Joby tripod, but it was, it didn't get high enough, and so there's a little bit of angle, and I couldn't just leave it set up because I needed to use my phone sometimes, for calling people. So whatever you have lying around, you can rig something up that'll work. I just already had all this stuff, so it was easy for me to rig it up, but I don't think you need a full frame camera to do live streaming or even tutorials. Play something. All right. Actually got to go in a second. Thanks, Brian. It's my first time doing tutorials after I got the OPZ 2 weeks ago, so really enjoying it so far, obviously. not great for soloing. Also, not a great soloist. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the stream. I hope I answered some of your questions. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of them, but Lloyd Robin Flex was able to answer them when I couldn't. So thanks for joining. Please subscribe. It's really helping me just have the motivation to do more of these. It's super fun. It's kind of like a brand new hobby that's taking up all my time and energy and space in my office, which my wife is super thrilled about. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time.